Hello, good afternoon, everybody. You're watching Jacqui Haley today, and I'm celebrating International Women's Day 2021. And as a result, I am interviewing the fabulous Ruth Salmon of Healing with Photography. Hello, Ruth, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Jackie. How are you?
I'm really good, actually. I always love International Women's Day. It just means so much that we get this one day, isn't it, to celebrate women on a global level, not just in the UK, but to celebrate it across the world, So, yeah. But Ruth, I've been a fan of your work for such a long time, as you know. Healing with Photography, for me, has just been such a wonderful, gentle therapy that you can bring to people with mental health. But I just wanted to know a little bit, what was it about Healing with Photography that inspired you to start the business off in the first place?
It came about because I needed help after being raped, and when I was living abroad at the time. I was living in Italy, and when I came home, I was still in not so much denial, but I didn't want to go to the doctor and have to tell the doctor what had happened to then get the help that I needed, and so I just kind of ignored it as if it wasn't there. But I was, although I was doing some like temp work, I was still struggling to kind of go out and feel safe anywhere and be on my own anywhere. And then the temp work changed, and I was going to be doing reception work and so in contact with lots of people, whereas before it had been shut away in an office, which was quite nice. And the weekend before I started with this raging sore throat, and throat lozenges just wouldn't do anything, give me any relief, paracetamol, nothing. And then the morning after I started the job, I woke up and I was coughing up blood, and I kind of didn't go in, and it was that bad. And anyway, to cut the long story short, the throat pain stayed with me for a good couple of years, and trying to find a way to get rid of the throat pain without having anything nasty, because I'd gone to the hospital, they'd done the camera down the nose, there was nothing untoward there, thank goodness, but still this pain. And I never connected the two. I never connected that, the rape was causing, how could it? And I went for speech therapy, and I was looking into homeopathy, which I knew nothing about, didn't understand. And it was only as I was talking to the man and thinking about setting up a session with him, and he said, you're looking for a trauma that's happened 6 months previous or a year previous, and he said, you've moved back from Italy and the move's very kind of stressful and emotional. And I was like, well, it's not that, I wanted to come home, and I was like, and there was just this huge emotional release, and I just cried for ages. And then I told my mum what had happened, and I started to get the help. But the help was first counselling, which I ended up counselling with a counsellor. So I asked for this other form of help that they'd mentioned at the time, called cognitive behaviour therapy. And so I went for that, thinking that it might be the better option. And it was just, I was asked to write an account of what happened before, during and after. And then at each session, I just had to sit and read out this account until I kind of cried less at the places that were more painful. And it wasn't dealing with the fact that I was still afraid to go out of the house or be with men, or none of that. It was just like, well, let's make you less, sensitive about the story itself. And years before I'd gone to live in Italy, I'd come across this little village when I was out on my wanderings, and I'd never really explored it. It was busy. It was a busy summer's day, and everybody was sat outside the pub, and it was just like this lovely little one-road village with some black and white houses and a church up on the hill. And I kind of took my camera and decided to go and explore, and that was the turning point, really. I started doing some photography there that day, and suddenly all the voices in my mind just stopped shouting at me, and I stopped hearing the word rape all the time. And I was like, I need to kind of find another way to keep this, during the day. I can't be doing photography every minute of the day. And so I started to look online, and I found people like Jennifer McLean, who was doing the 7-hour series. She was great, wasn't she? And she introduced me through that series to so many people, and to you as well. And I know we were back and forth all the time, like, what do you think of this person? And do you think this person's all right, or do you think they're a cult? Can we trust this person? And that was the catalyst. But there was no one place where I could go and get all the help I needed to kind of put me back on my feet and sort myself out mentally and become stronger. And it was taking a little bit of this and all that kind of works and that works. And so the long-winded answer is healing with photography came about because I helped myself to get better and put everything into a course to help other people that were in a similar situation, so that they could get better and not sit at home and be afraid to go out and, you know, be with other people.
It's almost like your mind has had that distraction, isn't it? To realise that once we find a moment of peace somewhere else, we get that glimmer. I like to call it my glimmer of hope. And then once we got that glimmer, we can expand on that then and see where it leads us to the next thing and to the next thing. And you mentioned Jennifer McLean, and you talked about CBT, which is something that's widely recognised by the NHS and counselling. It's not the first story I've heard about those type of therapies, but as a result, it forced you to look deeper, and you found people like Jennifer, or what I'd like to call her, working alternative mental health. And they work very much with the energy, doesn't they? And I think you discovered there was a different energy somewhere when you put your mind somewhere else, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with you discovering that then, and then you decided to go on then and use this as a way to kind of help to facilitate other people's mental health. Where did you take your business then next from that? Once you started to expand it and grow it, and you set up the website, where did you take that in terms of client? Who was your client base after that? What type of people did you work with?
Initially, I went to Mind, because at that time I wasn't quite confident enough or brave enough really to stand up and say, oh, I've done this course about people to, you know, help people overcome rape. They had treated me for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, with the CBT. And so that's kind of what the peg I hung it on, you know, look, this course will help people who have suffered with PTSD. So I contacted Mind and spoke to this man who was really, really helpful, and really said, you know, we've not come across anything like this and it needs to get into our centres. But of course, when you start to work with a charity, charities have very tight budgets. And they're all individual, you know, although the overall head office said, yes, this needs to get into our centres, it's still kind of a case of bringing each manager at each centre and getting in. But I did get in with a local centre, and they said to me, look, you know, this is quite an unusual thing. And what tends to happen with courses that we run is that they'll start off with lots of people and then they'll all drop away because it's not interesting or it's not for them. And I was like, well, fair enough, let's give it a go. So we started off with, I think it started off with about 5 or 6 people, and by the end of the course it ran for about 7 or 8 weeks, and by the end of the course we'd virtually doubled that. And more people were coming into the group as they heard about it and as they realised it wasn't scary, and it was really quite gentle. And you know, and I had this man come up to me and he said, if I'd learnt about this years ago, he said, I've struggled with my mental health for 30 years. He said, if I'd learnt like the tapping technique years ago, he said, I wouldn't still be struggling. You know, and I was just like, oh, it was just such a lovely thing that, you know, someone did that. And to see, I think when I created the course, there's always that underlying fear of like, well, it worked for me, but you know, am I going to really be able to help other people or not? And so for, you know, for people to give you that feedback, it's just kind of confirmation that, you know, that was really, really helpful. And then I did some work with a men's group, Manchester United, at the foundation there. That was another Mind run thing. And that was a tough sell, because they said, well, we're not sure if it's right for us, but if you can sell it to the person in the group who all the other men listen to, you know, then if you can convince him, then you can do it. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we just had, they were at the Cliff training ground at Manchester United's old training ground, and we just had a walk around the pitch, a big group of us, and we're just talking, and we're talking about, we both had CBT, and we were talking about how it didn't work and how traumatic it was. And he didn't actually join the course, but he gave the go ahead, and so everybody came.
Good.
There's this kind of moment kind of halfway through the course when you're starting to talk about your inner child and forgiving the inner child. You know, the child didn't know what was happening, and it's that makes you scared. And I do a kind of quite deep meditation about it. And and it was like you saw the penny drop with everybody, and the light came on, and in that week people started to relax more with each other and with me. It was something changed, you know, and they started to allow themselves to be vulnerable and to heal and to share stories and some awful things that, you know, they'd gone through and treatment. But just, yeah, so, and then from there, really only in the last year that I've been brave enough to say, no, I need to kind of face this head on now, you know, and I can help more people if I'm honest and say, okay, I'm doing this because I was raped and this is how I help myself get better. Because how do all the other people out there who have been raped know that there's something out there to help them if you're not, you know, head on and say this is what it's about? And some people shy away from it, some friends shy away from it, but I think it's time.
It's like, I know you, okay, so I know, but for someone to when you're watching someone to be so brave and bold, and looking at, when I spoke about leaders in our field a few days ago, we look at those people that are brave and courageous, bold, but bringing that compassion in as well is important. Not the compassion for everything, but the compassion for yourself, to say, this is me, this is what's happened to me, and I am now going to share it. And also having the compassion to override your own fear, to go there with your clients. Do you know? So to go because some people would, as you say, they shy away from it because they don't want to talk about it, or, you know, but having that compassion for your client to actually take them there as well, to go there in the right, safe manner. And one thing I picked up from the photography is that when we look at going for therapy, it's still stigmatized today, to this day, okay? But all you're doing is gently say, hey, all you need is an iPhone or a Samsung or a phone with a decent camera. Oh, I don't need any expensive equipment. No, really, all you need to do that and bring a warm coat if we're going to be outside. Do you know? So it's like, I can do this. I can do this. It's okay. And as they gently build up that trust, and you're making it safe for them, which is really important, isn't it? They gently then realise that as you can drop them down into this where they need to be, you know, a few days later they can say, this is okay, you know, I feel good about this. So for you to create that space of trust and safety is absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for? So important for their healing journey and their phase that they're going through, to able for them to come out the other side, you know. And it started off with an iPhone camera.
Yes, I know, and that's what I always say. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and buy a camera, you know, and it's not even about taking the best picture. It's about the process of, and the photography is all nature focused because, you know, we know that you get kind of healing from nature anyway. And so that's, you know, already aiding it without people realizing, you know, and it's just the process of taking the picture. But I start the sessions with a meditation, because I've learnt myself that if you have a meditation, you got rid of all the chatter straight away of the bits going, no, this is stupid, you don't want to listen to this. You know, calm the ego down, you're doing some kind of nice work, and so then they're more open to listening to what you've got to say, and then the photography comes in later in the session.
I think when starting up with the meditation allows them to see just how powerful their own minds are, just by offering a few suggestions, and it's like you almost visibly see their shoulders go, oh God, I really like this. I'm not going to tell the boys in the pub, but I really like this, you know. So, and do you know, for them also as well, do you know when they first take their photographs? Now I know myself, I look at a scene right in front of me, I'll click the photograph, and then I realise, oh my God, it's the most beautiful when I look at it through a photo. Was that kind of a recognition for people, a realisation for people whilst they were kind of snapping away?
I think they were surprised because in both situations, the first place was a town, and it made them look at the town differently.
Right, okay.
They think they know, you know, reasonably well because they go there shopping or, you know, socialising or whatever. And all of a sudden you're asking them to look for specific things. And so there was a park as well in the centre of town, which was helpful. And, you know, so I'm asking them to look for specific things. Like when I do the section of Who Am I, which goes through a couple of courses, sections, because it's so deep to get into, and that's the foundation stone. I'm asking them to go and take pictures of something, but then think about the label that we've given it. you know, as a name, so a flower, and then to strip that back, and when you take away the name, what are you left with? And you're left with the leaves and the petals and the fragrance, but really what are you left with? You know, you're left with this living, breathing thing, which is exactly what we are when you strip away all the labels of, you know, child, mother, you know, whatever your career is, and you just come back to you, and that's kind of key as well. And I kind of do a meditation of asking, you know, who am I? And that changes very much from day one to the end of the course. You know, and it really surprises them when they ask that question and they're quiet, because like you say, you don't often, you know, sit and be quiet and relax. And when you ask that question and realise there's something else going on in your mind, you know, in your body that can answer those questions better than any outsider. And, you know, it can be quite upsetting as well, I think, for some people in an emotional sense of they hadn't realised, you know, that deep inside they are this kind of gentle person because they've taken on so much in life from, you know, childhood up of everybody else's beliefs about them. Some people come to believe the beliefs that others have of them. So
we, you know, we really become those beliefs. So with the course itself then, is the course over is it once a week, or is it kind of a daily kind of course they come on, or is it over a few months? How do the courses run with you? Or is it one course? Is it two courses?
It's one course. It's 11 parts, and it's now online, purely online. And ideally, I suggest people do one course in one section a week, and take longer if possible, because, you know, some of the techniques that are in there are things that you can do on a daily basis to start changing your life to feel better, confident, happier. And like 21 days, 28 days for a habit to form. You know, ideally it would be like every couple of weeks that you would do a course. But I know for myself, when I wanted to get better, I didn't have time to kind of, you know, take 28 days to do the next level. I wanted to get through it as quick as I could. But really a week in between each level, so that you can start to, you know, embed those techniques into your daily life before you then take on some more and take on some more, because you don't want to overwhelm and, you know, stop doing it.
No, I know. So great. So it's now all online with you then, of course, because we're in lockdown. I keep forgetting that. So everything. How can I forget about it? So we've looked at what's inspired you and how the course runs, but you said something that really kind of pulled my attention, and I'm sure it did with all the viewers as well. You talked about working with Manchester United. Did you go into the team itself, or was it the staff you work with, or how did you?
It was they have, like, I think that Jacqui Football Club works within the community, and it was their community foundation that I went to work with, and they do lots of men's groups for, you know, who are struggling with different mental health issues, and they're playing football some of the time, and then they kind of give them courses, you know, to just help them really, so that they're moving on mentally and becoming stronger and stronger, because obviously people want to come in and get, you know, move people along and take in new people. So but I used to work for Manchester United many years ago, so it was perhaps a little easier to pick up the phone to the right person and encourage them to meet with me.
I think I see, like, I follow quite a few football teams on Twitter, and I see a lot of I can't think of his name. There's a guy in particular that does a lot for mental health. What's in the field of sports? I can't think of his name now. I don't know whether he suffered racial abuse. I can't remember. His name will come back to me, but he is a massive pioneer in mental health for sports professionals. And looking at some footballers were stepping forward and talking about how they get taunted from the fans, and that was really affecting their progress and their ability to perform on the pitch, and it was holding them back. And I thought, oh God, yes, we forget that they're human beings. We see them as these big sports stars who earn all this money, and under that, they're just like me and you. They're just human beings with their own backgrounds and stories to tell. And I'm just thinking, when I heard you say that, I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if there is more support in the field of sports, you know, because it's a huge thing, isn't it, you know?
It would, and you're seeing it so much now, you know, in the last 5-10 years of social media. Someone has a bad game, and if they're on Twitter, they're so accessible, you know, for someone to start having a go at them. I was reading something just the other day. I didn't read into the article properly, but this journalist, female journalist, had interviewed someone on television after a rugby match, and I think that she just asked some genuinely hard questions. I don't think they played particularly well, and she asked something like that, you know, why didn't you perform, or words to that effect. And I saw this article where she said she'd sat in her car after the match and she'd, you know, just checked her Twitter, and she got however many notifications, and they were all people being so abusive to her just because she did her job and, you know, asked some hard questions of players. And she said she was in tears, you know, that these people, and you just think social media is so great for us, you know, in our business, to get to people, but to use it like that, you're right, you know, people are too accessible now almost, and it must be very hard to, you've got to clear notifications somehow. You've got to click onto them to clear those notifications. It's hard not to see the first few, at least, you know, what's been said. But no, it's
I think Twitter is a dangerous place to be. I call it I'm sure my age now, but Twitter's like the OK Corral. It's like if you want to fight with someone, go to Twitter, because you've got to get a fight. You could put someone. I love fairy cakes, and someone, they'll come up with something. And to be honest, the last few weeks I've had quite a few trolls. I've had people screenshotting my posts and penalising me for having different views on different subjects. And actually tweeted on Sunday. I did go back and delete it. It was quite funny. I said, if you've come to screenshot my tweets for some kind of gratification, I said, you have a fluffy pancake recipe. I said, and hope it sweetens you up a little bit, you know, because it's not enough. Because how do you deal with trolls? You know, we can ignore them, but it does. I mean, generally they don't bother me, to be honest. But I've not had it on that kind of level. But given that mental health was such a huge thing, wasn't it? Before this COVID, it was massive. Mental health was huge, and it was all hashtag Caroline Flack be kind. Bless her, she took a terrible time off her trolls, and that's all seemed to be forgotten now, isn't it? We've all forgotten that. And if you dare to disagree with someone, oh my goodness, you are diagnosed with a mental health condition, you deserve to be locked up. All these people are coming out and throwing, I like to say, their kind of cyber javelins at you, and it's like, you know, duck, and to the point where I stopped going on Twitter for a while, because I thought I was all the time people fighting. I just thought, you know what, I'm just leave them all to it. But this is what I'm saying, it's almost like mental health has been forgotten now. So in terms of how your business is doing now, you said you put things online, you put the course online. Is that working better for you now than actually physically going in and working with clubs and working with Mind? Has it been as kind of busy for you, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, really, the benefit of lockdown has meant that I've had the time to do the website and get it up there and, you know, get to people. And so now it's really letting people know that it's there. And also that you don't have to go back through what you suffered to do the course. There's no kind of digging back over the past, because I don't think that that's particularly helpful. You know, from my experience, it made me more reclusive and more scared. And, you know, so to do that, it's not the way that helped me to heal. So I think it's kind of important that people know that you're not going back over your trauma. It's all about now and going forward, and rather than going back. But the course being online, I think it's just made it more accessible, you know, to everybody. And because we are all locked up in our homes as well, and everybody's busy on the internet kind of browsing, and, you know, it has made it a bit more accessible to do that. And plus, of course, you can do it at the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go to a place. And if you're in that zone, I was very wary myself of doing any group therapies. They kept being suggested, and I didn't want to do them because I didn't want to sit in a room with someone else and, you know, kind of have to tell them what had happened. That was my visualization of what the group therapy would be, that we'd all have to sit around and talk, you know, like you see on films with AA and things like that. I don't want to be doing that. So I think that's the reticence that I felt in groups. You know, people were very nervous for the first few weeks until they realised that there wasn't going to be any sharing, and they could, you know, if they wanted to, they could. That was the point, But, you know, so when you kind of can just do it online and at your own pace, and no one has to know that you bought the course, you know, or that you've got it stored anywhere, it's just between you and the computer. I think it just adds an extra element of privacy, really.
Yeah. I just question on my tip of my tongue for you then. You mentioned something about being in home. Do you know one thing I've brought up? It's not when people come to you, it's like they've got to go car park and get dressed, get out of the house as well. I suppose we give a lot for now right now, but what I'm saying, I suppose it is more easier for them to go on, especially if they're feeling stressed and anxious, just go online and find this lovely course. So when you do the course, is there any interaction from you personally, or is it something that they completely do at their own pace on their own?
They can have email contact if they want to, but otherwise it's kind of on their own. But there is a specific Facebook group, private group, for the people who do the course, and then they, you know, can put their pictures up there if they want to share the pictures that they've taken, and then from there it's up to them, you know, whether they go on and talk with other people, and they have that kind of network of support there of people that have obviously been, you know, through the course, otherwise they wouldn't have access to the group, and so there's a little bit of security in that. And from time to time I'm considering putting up some guest interviews and things like that to give some extra interest to the group as well, because I think it's quite important to, especially in the first a few months of recovering, of just kind of feeling that you're with someone that understands, you know, who has similar emotions, and just starting to build a new network of friends as well. It's not that you might want to be friends with everybody in the group, but you kind of want to start to find friends who think now in the same way that you think and are more open to the world, you know, and being mindful and having meditations every so often and things like that. I think it's surprising. I used to read in books like Louise Hay how you'd want to change your friends, because you know they're not going to think like you, and they might be critical, and you don't want critical people in your life. And I would hear all the coaches say, oh, you want to get rid of all the critical people in your life, and you want to, you know, kind of change your group of friends. And I was like, oh, and now I look at my group of friends, and really there's no one that was there before you. You know, you're virtually the only person that's still in my group of friends, and that's because, you know, we had that connection. We went to Fuerteventura, or I met you in Fuerteventura, and we went to that. They say about Fuerteventura kind of being a very spiritual island, don't they? Yeah. And I swear something switched on in me when I was there. Just those few short weeks, and we went to the tarot card reader.
Oh my goodness! I was only talking about him the other day. I was only talking about him the other day to my sister, because I didn't really believe in it. I thought, I'm sitting there, I don't know if I believe it. Can you remember he said about he talked about someone coming forward for me with no arm, or arm had been severed or something like that, and it was actually my great uncle who had been killed in where a ship had gone down, sank off the German coast. It was quite a big thing in the day, because we just finished the war with Germany, and yeah, my great uncle had his as he was about to get back on the ship, it was a stormy night, the hurricane cut his arm off, and that's how he drowned, in front of my grandfather. So, and that was when he said, didn't he, about the boats, and I was like, oh, maybe there is something in this then. But I remember going for my sister, didn't I? And he said something to you as well, didn't he? I remember. Yeah. He was very good looking back.
I remember wanting me to go with you, and I was like, this is a load of rubbish. But by the time I came out, I was like, oh my goodness, there's something in this.
But you know, when we go back to that time and think, you know, that was what, goodness, back in 2006, when we go back to that time, 14, 15 years ago, to what our beliefs are now.
Yeah.
Now they've changed.
Yeah.
And, you know, and how can I put this in it, right? It's through our traumas and our hurts, do we get held a big mirror in front of us? It's like a massive mirror comes in front of us, and it's through those traumas that we really get to look at ourselves and what those wicked qualities and what those surviving qualities and thriving qualities are. And there's a lady that that I trained with, I'm going to name her name is Vera Kuma, and she's also I would say a thriver of abuse, but she will say, oh, I'm not a survivor, darling, I'm a thriver.
Yes, that's what I think. I find the word survivor to be quite a negative word. You know, it sounds like you're kind of gripping with your fingertips. You know, and I never, when I overcame, you know, I thrived, and I became a much happier person. And it's awful to think you have to go through something so terrible before you turn your life around and you become happier. But, you know, if there was a silver lining, it's that, you know, I'm not driven in the way that I was before, because I'm not ego-led anymore, you know. So
yeah, that makes sense. And you did make me giggle or something. So when we discovered Jennifer McLean back then, and we thought it was some kind of company, they were all really weird. What are they talking? You know, yeah. And looking at the way they suggested that we cut certain foods out of our diet, and I remember thinking, what kind of pasta and potatoes? You must be joking. But then understanding that, I thought it was really weird. But understanding now, it's like second nature now. Like,
yes, I know. I think it was a good thing that we were questioning all the time, like, so we couldn't get caught by someone that was, you know, perhaps a cult, because she certainly did interview someone who was a bit, I can't remember his name, but he ended up going to prison for, yeah, I can't remember who that was, and he ended up going to prison for different things. Who?
Oh my God!
No, it was someone who would take people to like a sauna in the middle of the countryside, and it would be really, 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 really hot, too hot to handle. And if they went out, then they were wimps. And quite a few people, I mean, it's America, so quite a few people sued him and brought criminal charges. And I can't remember what his name was. But it was funny because when she interviewed him, I thought, there's something a bit odd about you. Why don't you see it, Jennifer? And this became a story in the papers, and I was like, oh, right, okay, it was a bit dodgy. But I think it was right that, you know, we questioned between ourselves, is this right? Because it was something very different to us that we were learning from all these different people that she interviewed who were just fantastic. I mean, like Sonia Chiquette and, you know, Wayne Dyer, and, you know, people. I just love Wayne Dyer.
But, as well, you know, I use Greg Braden's saying at the end of most of my sessions now. When you change the way, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes,
that was his favorite quote on it, and I love and yeah, and I think getting back to what you do and what I do for a living, it's like we are classed as alternative or complementary. That's what we classed as, and our therapies can have a stigma attached to them because of people like that man.
Yes.
Because in fact we're not classed as being regulated, but if people understood that neither was CBT or counselling is a regulated thing, it's just there's lots of research on it, and it's accepted by the NHS, which makes us believe that it's better for us.
Yeah.
You know, but in reality, you and I know in our experiences that it is not the best. And I think there is an NLP coach and trainer I follow from America. His name is David Cinder. He's absolutely superb. He's got great information on YouTube free of charge. He does a lot of paid stuff for free of charge, and I learned a lot through him. And I think he looked at one research, and it was like it would take like 600 hours of counselling, which is equivalent to one session a week for so many years, and then it worked at like a 36% chance of that person overcoming it. But when you take tapping of thought field therapy or Roger Callahan or Gary Craig, EFT, when they study the research papers on them, even by say this now I've got a brush in my hand, right, an angel brush. If I was imagining that was the person tapping on it, people were getting results just by doing that. So there's a whole lot of that connection with the energy. So it classes as a pseudoscience. Is it true? Is it not? And there was one psychiatrist in particular that followed Roger Callahan's work for 20 years, and he couldn't disprove him in any way because the people he followed up with still had the cure. And yes. he found it quite by accident as well, didn't he? So I mean, EFT, looking back when I first trained as a hypnotherapist, it was only bolt-on therapy that I did, and then I know you trained in it, and that's all I ever used up until 2017. So I started training newer techniques. It's all I ever used, because it's so effective. And I know that when you're with the person, that it can be quite very emotive, can it? You know, and cathartic. Yeah. When you're with the right person who's leading you through that process, it's the most magical, isn't it? The results that we get. So yeah.
I'm so in love with EFT. But the thing that I love most about EFT is that even if you're skeptical, like I did it with Drew, my husband, and even if you're skeptical and you think it's a load of old food and it's not going to works. And now he tells everybody about EFT, and you need to if someone says they've got something wrong with them, or they're scared of something, or they're fearful of speaking out loud or something, EFT, that's what you need. And he tells everybody because the converted are the best ones.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what? I was probably a bit like Drew on everything. When I went back to uni to do that course on complementary health, I did it because my sister had cancer, and I was looking for an holistic alternative to to work with the side effects of treatment. And when someone told me about reflexology, about all these things, I'm like, how on earth can tapping, how on earth can rubbing someone's feet?
Yeah.
No, this just can't work. So I actually took on more case studies and worked harder and longer hours because I had to settle it in my own mind. And now I think reflexology, EFT, all of them should be on the NHS. Everyone should be using them. And you can teach it to do at home as well. You can do hand reflexology. You can tap on your hands. You can do so much with it. And I think, wouldn't the world be a nicer place if we could just bring this into our lives? And people, but will it hurt me? Is it dangerous? No, but the McDonald's you probably ate last night would. But no, that's me being sarcastic. But what I mean is, these things can really, really be so effective, and they can be taught to be used in the comfort of our own home as well, which is what your courses enable people to do. Am I right? Is that similar?
That's right, yes, and there's a bonus video in there as well too, actually, on EFT, because I just couldn't do the course without sharing it with people.
Exactly.
Because you can use it for anything. And I think, I mean, I've used it with, family members as well, and they've been quite surprised how it shifted things from childhood. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. When I first came across it, I doubted it because I saw someone using it on pain, and there's people on the stage, and she was like, oh yes, my shoulder moves now, and it's fine. And I'd got that throat pain, and so I kind of tapped, and I was like, well, it's still got this throat pain, because I didn't realise it was, something that was emotional, and I needed to do something else with it. And then I came back to it with Pamela Bruner and learnt it from her, and then went into formal training, near at home. But yeah, I just love it.
Funny thing about Pamela Bruner, I was doing EFT with someone last week, and I said, we got EFT, and then we got EFT Jacqui style. I said, let's go. And I remember me thinking Pamela would probably been really proud of me, because that's kind of the thing she does in that, so it just goes off. And so it's to be really motivational as well, isn't it? So
and she's the only one I know that taps positive back in, and I just love that.
I know. And when I was working with this lady, I was like, I know you've done it before elsewhere. I said, but just go with me. And we went around, and then it ramps up and ramps, because you can almost feel the tension coming away, and then it ramps up. And it's like, So I had a lovely positive message of her a few days later. But that is, and I remember she was the person. I don't think I've seen anyone do it like that since her, actually.
No, I never
have. Anyone else do it that way?
When I went to the training course locally in Manchester to do the EFT, and you split off into your groups, one-on-one with people. So the person I was with, who was learning EFT as well, when we got her issue right down, I tapped in the positive for her, which we taught, in the course, and someone else heard me, and so they started doing it as well. And the person that was running the course was like, oh well, I'm not sure about that.
Arms rolled up, and we go. No, I know, but I love it, and it's just, again, I've not actually. There is a lady in Swansea near me that does similar, actually, but I think you can get so creative, and it is the person in front of you as well. You can, with their personas, like, you can kind of tie in with that as well, can't you? So Ruth, just to summarise and clarify then with you, you are the founder and director of Healing with Photography. You started your business due to personal trauma that you had, and it was something that you'd done one day that you realised, hey ho, this has given me some peace and focus and clarity here, let's explore it. You put the course together, you went on to train as an EFT practitioner, and you put the course together, incorporating that with your photography. You went to run sessions with Mind, and that expanded into working with Manchester United. Did I say City?
You did.
I can see the evil eyes coming through the screen. Didn't say that name. As a Liverpool fan, though, I feel the same way. It's just one thing we got in common with football, then. We both don't like City. So. But anyway, so then you went into the community with Manchester United, and you give a lot of, like, males in mental health some realizations that, yes, we can really start to heal through using this technique and using the course. You started to put the online course together anyway, and of course then we got the COVID, and we've had a year of on and off lockdowns. So now your website has been revamped, you've had a new logo, I notice, and the online course can now be found on your website, www.healingwithphotography.co.uk. and it's an 11-week course where you can work at your own pace, and you highly recommend that you work one session at a time. Don't go rushing through it. 1 week, 2 weeks, but be slow and gentle. And after the course is finished, or during the course, there is a Facebook group which you have, and people can join there. They can come as an observer, they can just come, or they can come and interact, and they can meet new friends and just really interact with people, like-minded people who will understand, who have done the course, and yeah, they can greet each other on a new level. So yeah, so it sounds excellent.
Thank
Where can I sign up?
Just go online.
Okay then, so yeah, so today you've heard our interview. I'm Jacqui Haley, a therapist based in the UK, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing Ruth